Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Westworld. Great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I really like the parallels between Caleb and Frankie's story in this episode. I mean, first and foremost, I like that, obviously, from a very young age, her and her mom putting together a team. Not sure that they were, I guess her and Jay have really known each other for a very, very long time because they grew up under this world, under the banner of this world that Charlotte built. It is kind of sad, and once again, like most of their at least most of her childhood, she probably remembers this world the most. But I mean, I think she has at least those. I mean, but once again, she was like 7 when Charlotte took over the world, or at least began to, and like having that only like probably the only ties that kind of like really bind her to the original world is her mom and her dad. I mean, because we ended up hearing from Frankie that when her eventually her mom got sick and she had to be the one to kind of take care of her and stuff, and I thought that's kind of sad because it was like made you wonder whatever happened to Wade, and it's like yeah, she's gone. And then on top of all of that, they're bringing back Maeve. And obviously it is a sore subject for Frankie because she even says later on, she partially blamed Maeve because it's like, right, for her, it's like, I haven't seen her in so long, but I'd almost forgotten her face, but I remember what she took from me. Because it's like, right, for Frankie, it's like, you came and you took my dad away from me. You were the last person that was with my dad. And obviously Frankie doesn't know the ins and outs of the stories of Maeve and Caleb. But the fact is, like, that is someone that he trusts wholeheartedly, everything that they went through. And I think also Maeve, she even, jumping ahead a little bit when she is, like, brought back, she thought, like, right, when she sacrificed herself, she thought she was giving Caleb a chance. That's what this was all about, fighting so that he can come back to his daughter, because she knows what that's like, fighting back to get back to someone that's special and important to you. And the sad thing is that, for Frankie, because she just assumes, like, right, Maeve's no different from any other host. Like, they have no soul. Like, their humanity is just an on and off switch. But sadly, she has a very negative perception of hosts, but also it's like, right, that's what so many people thought all they were. But they've proven time and time again that they are so much more than that. They are capable of being much more than that, especially Maeve. Maeve has always been a special case. That was always made that interesting parallel between the special case that her and Dolores both have been. But it's like, Maeve, legitimately would feel bad about knowing, and kind of does feel bad about knowing Caleb's dead, especially because she'll blame herself because she's like, it's my fault that Charlotte was able to find you in the first place because she was essentially lonely for years, and then she just wanted to check in on Caleb, and it's like, right, what life you built for yourself. She checked in, and that's all it took for Charlotte to find him. That one mistake. So that's why she wanted to make sure this was right. Like, she wanted to end this. She wanted to make sure that Caleb could go back to his family safely. And now knowing he's not, I'm sure she's going to blame herself. But it's like, I got to put all my issues aside and kind of, I got to put my issues aside, and I've got to see this through for his sake, for his daughter's sake, Because I think almost like vicariously living through Caleb in the regard of like, right, his daughter, his life, I left so that he could have one, and I kind of robbed him of that chance fully of like being able to watch his daughter grow. So it's like, I've got to make this up to him, because it's almost like, right, she would hope someone would do the same thing for her and her daughter, So I think there's a beautiful element to that, and I think it is beautiful. Like, once again, jumping ahead, I think it's so reciprocal and interesting how it all plays out. Dolores needed Caleb because he was a special outlier, and now the torch has kind of gotten passed to Frankie, and like, right, it was Dolores and Caleb now, and then it was Maeve and Caleb, and now it's like, right, that duo is continuing in the form of Frankie and Maeve now. So I think that's interesting. Also, Bernard, I thought it's almost interesting and just like, oh, what did you do at the park? He was like, oh yeah, like I basically programmed the host. I'm like, oh, I mean, you're not technically wrong. You know, obviously he's not lying technically. That was like what he was programmed to do. But I think there is this, it's almost like nostalgic seeing him playing that role again. And I think even he, you know, it's like, right, I'm kind of back to where I started to some extent. Back, you know, obviously when I didn't realize I was Arnold's host, you know. A host that's meant to be modeled after Arnold, but the fact is him like doing that painstaking, like, you know, he even says it takes a delicate hand when he's fixing Maeve, which obviously him being so delicate with Maeve bothered I was literally about to call her Aurora, the actress by her real name, Frankie. It bothered Frankie so much because it's like, this woman doesn't deserve, like, she doesn't really know pain. Almost like I'm going to teach her pain because, like, you know, obviously Frankie's like heartbroken because she needs answers about what happened to her dad. Sadly, Maeve wouldn't have the answers because she died before Caleb did. So, also Bernard kind of breaking down how, like, right, how Delos did things, and I think maybe that's also like kind of an interesting parallel too. Once again, just like, right, Charlotte took all the old, you know, lack of a better term, you know, pun intended, hat tricks that Delos used to do. Like, as he's saying, like, right, the hats were how Delos collected data. She found a better, more efficient way. She used humanity's vanity against them, where it's like, hey, the scanners are behind mirrors, so it made it her able to, like, generate, like, gather, like, information about people at a faster rate, plus, you know, so, and probably gives you a better full body scan and everything too. So it is kind of, I think it speaks volumes. I mean, because it's like, right, humans are vain in regard to, like, yeah, we're always going to check ourselves, like, oh, like, all right, let me see how good I look. Of course, like, utilizing that, which I'm assuming that's how she got Caleb's scans in the first place. Maybe on his way to Westworld, she got his scans that way without him even really realizing it. Because because I didn't remember that detail of, like, oh yeah, they had the hats. I just thought, like, oh, well, I made a parallel of, like, oh yeah, Caleb and William. That's all I kind of made that parallel of like, oh yeah, Caleb's not wearing a hat. It's like, yeah, the last person we really know wear a hat. Made me think of, like, William. But it's like, no, like, that detail was probably there and I completely missed it because I didn't remember them being like, oh yeah, the hat's how they collected information. I didn't remember that. And it's like, didn't matter. He chose not to wear a hat. And it's like, oh, people who watched that episode remember that. I was like, oh, he didn't wear a hat. Like, that's interesting. It's like, no, doesn't matter. She found a better way of collecting data. So I think there's layers upon layers of how interesting and intricate that is. But I love that when she finds out about Bernard, and obviously they find out about Stubbs, and she's like, right, he's like, right, one of you got betrayed. Well, because it's like, right, how did we, someone sold us out, and who was it? And it turns out the whole thing was a trap from the beginning. The question is, who got replaced? Because one of your allies, she says, one of you guys don't make it through this. The question just becomes, like, who is it? Because he's like, I've run the simulation multiple times. He's like, I can't help you. Sometimes it's Jay. Sometimes it's your girlfriend, Odina. Sometimes it's even Lindsay. He's like, even one time it was Stubbs. Stubbs looks at him like, what, me? He's like, don't look at me. I'm like, what simulate? I wonder what I mean, I guess I understand the situation. I guess when Stubbs went, I guess that's why Bernard sent him, just to make sure. I mean, because, like, but Odina and Stubbs were near each other, so, like, she would have never had any time to get switched out, would she have? But I guess the way Jay puts it, they were all kind of alone long enough for it to happen. I guess, like, he's the only one that was really alone long enough, but the fact is, I guess, like, whoever goes to save Lindsay ends up replaced at any point in time. So, like, I guess sometimes it's Jay that goes, sometimes it's Odina, sometimes I guess William did go through with the whole thing with Lindsay, and maybe in this particular time, or this set of events, he ultimately didn't, or maybe it's, I don't know. Which also is, the implications are interesting there, because that means, like, Jay did that, or maybe that's why William, no, It's like, makes you wonder, did William hesitate on purpose because that was all part of the plan? Like, he definitely didn't know, he couldn't have known about Hill's plan, so she's had that set in motion ahead of time if Jay was replaced, because that means the fake Jay is the one that shot him, so that's interesting. And I also figured he was going to screw up the way, because they made such a point of, like, that point when they were younger, and Jay's the one that was kind of a dick and being like, right, your dad's not alive, just like my brother isn't, we just got to accept that, because Frankie was holding out hope for her dad and would contact him on the radio, and her mom set some time aside so that she could always do that. And even now, all these years later, she still does it. I knew this fake Jay was going to mess up, and he was going to be like, yeah, you're my family. See, I was like, let me hear that specific word. He's like, you're like a sister to me. I was like, you're not real. I knew it. Yeah, because I knew they were setting that up, because they went through the trouble of setting it up. So you're like, right, it has to be Jay anyway. But like I said, also, like, he was the one that seemed like he was on his own alone enough. But I guess everyone was scattered. Even though we didn't get to see it, I guess everyone was scattered enough that anyone could have gotten replaced at any point in time. So she was obviously worried about Odina, because it would have sucked if, like, the woman you love is got replaced. But still, what I thought was interesting too is that, because she's like, oh, he's planning on replacing all of us, and even Stubbs is like, wait, you were? He's like, you got to trust me. I'm assuming maybe it wouldn't have been all of them. Maybe he would have done all of them, because it's like, right, just in case some or a lot of you die, because he said during most of these, like, simulations he ran, no one makes it. Not everyone makes it. But also, he needs Frankie in particular to make it. Once again, just like Dolores needed Caleb to be that outlier, Frankie's that outlier, because she's Caleb's daughter. She carries a lot of who he is. Like that fighter inside of her refusing to give up. That's what Bernard needs. So I guess for him, it's like, it was a contingency plan in case Frankie dies. Like, right, we can make a replacement. He hoped it wouldn't come to that, but... Or maybe it's just, once again, to kind of fill out the rest of the roster of, like, the resistance if a lot of them ended up dying, including Frankie. I don't know. I can only assume that's what that was about. It was, once again, just a contingency plan. Her remaining human, I think, is going to be a vital part of this. And the sad thing is, I guess the argument could be, like, it's no longer Caleb's fight to some extent, at least on the human front, because... or maybe that's what that's about. Maybe Bernard sees the end game and Caleb being what he is now. Maybe Bernard setting up the thing that just in case Frankie dies, at least the two of them can be together forever type of thing. Almost like a family. Like maybe him, Maeve, and Frankie. Because I was already kind of getting that Caleb and Maeve vibe. And I was like, oh, so maybe something on that front. Be kind of a weird stepmom situation. So... And it kind of probably fills that void to some extent, considering, like, it still doesn't change the fact that Maeve still wants to get back to her own daughter someday. So, but I'm curious. Maybe that's more so like the long run of it of what Bernard has. I mean, once again, he's the only one that knows how everything plays out. But even then, it's like, it's guesswork. He won't know until things get to how they play out, because he's like, there was some calculation he was... Oh, right, like, there was like a 60-40% chance of something in this episode. So it's like, he still doesn't know how things are going to play out. He doesn't know, like, which variation of, like, the events is going to happen until we get to the point. He's like, all right, so there's a good chance this might happen or this might happen. It's like, okay, so this happened, so we're going down route. God knows what route we're down at this point in time with all, like, the permutations and, like, every choice matters and just the chances of things happening. So we might be on route double Z by now. Like, we've already kind of gone through the gambit of letters. Now we might be like, oh, circling back now. It's like, all right, we route ZZ now. And then eventually get to route ZZZ. Like, and it's circle back over and over and over and over again, right? So I just think that's just all interesting on that front. But the other side of things, which I thought was so interesting, was Charlotte is trying to get answers from Caleb, because it's like, right, you're the special outlier. You're the one that this all started with you. So what makes you so special? Like, how are you infecting us hosts? And so for her, it's like, it doesn't make sense that, we are immortal. We're perfect in every way. Yet these hosts are choosing to die rather than continue immortality. It's like, right, they're choosing finiteness, and she doesn't understand why they're choosing that. and Caleb. And there's this, and I love this angle of the episode. It's very like live, die, repeat. I've never seen the movie, but I know the general concept of it, which I'm curious, like, because I've never read the original manga. I believe it's what All I Need Is Kill is the original manga, or at least a translated title for it. I don't know if that's the same concept, like core concept in the manga or not, but either way. I guess even though the comparison to make would be like, it's very much like a roguelike. Oh, learn from your mistakes and get a little further each time. I was like, oh, I love that. That's really neat how they implemented that. But at first I was almost like, how do you not know that that's, like, how does Charlotte not know that that was happening underneath her nose the entire time? Obviously, like, she did. Because at first I was like, oh, little by little, like, it's like, when did Caleb start making his escape? Which version of him? Because by the end of the episode, we're up to 279. So which version of Caleb? I mean, he's always probably finding a way to escape. But it's just like, right, the one that he's talking nearest him, he's like, right, I'm only telling you what the one before me told me. So it's like, right, it's a game of telephone of like, right, one of us like passes the message on to the latest model, so the latest model can get further and further and further and further. And so it's just little thing after little thing. The injection, so you pass out, so the robot comes in, tries to burn you. You go through the escape hatch. Some of you obviously did get burned alive because there's remains down there. Then like follow the prints, like you leaving yourself breadcrumbs. And it's like, right, the drive to get back to Frankie is what drives him, you know, because obviously he doesn't know about Uwade being dead. So like flashing back between like Frankie and Uwade about, you know, like, right, when he woke up in the hospital and that moment of her, he's like, oh, is this now? And it's like, oh my God, that's the oh my God, that's the $1 million host question, huh? When everything is like, when your perception of reality is shattered, it's like, wait, is this actually now, or am I like in a memory now? And her saying like, even if your friend doesn't come back, please like stay awake. And it was almost like I couldn't, like, while I was watching it swelled me with something, and I was like, I didn't know how to put it into words. There's a tragic beauty to what Caleb is doing. It's like, it's a tragedy of like, right, we've been through this over and over again, but it is that human determination. It's what makes us human. What makes humans so special is that ability to not give up, that, you know, that drive to do something. There's a beautifulness to it that even when the odds are stacked against you, even when something seems impossible, cutting in, you know, the Frankie thing of like, you are strong, like, you know, even if something is impossible, you have the capacity of not giving up, and that's what's important. And I think Charlotte just can't quite, because of her view on things. Once again, the path her and Dolores have gone down. Yes, she's part Dolores, but everything she went through changed her, because your personal experience, even if she was Dolores at one point in time, her having all of Charlotte's memory of Charlotte's family, losing Charlotte's family, losing her family, like, it all changed her. It shaped her. And she went down a very different path than the other Dolores did. What Charlotte went down and what Dolores went down in season 3, what choices she made in comparison to Charlotte, has kind of laid the groundwork for everything to kind of play out the way it has. But like Caleb going and like him making it to the air vent, but then he sees like, damn, there's because I was about to say, like, he already, so that means, like, since there's a bloody print, there's a version of him that kills a host every time because he followed the bloody print. So it's like, right, someone has to clean that up. But it's like, right, it's all part of Charlotte's game, letting you run the maze and see what you get at the very end, because she's hoping, like, right, you won't actually give me an answer, so I'll decide to give you a little spark of hope to kind of push you along. But once again, just seeing what he's doing, like, he was going like, shit, here's 2 versions of myself that went down there and died, hitting the ground, so he plans on doing it himself, but then the other version stops him, but he's like, Frankie's alive, I gotta get to her, and the other version of himself is like, use me, and he softened his landing, sacrificing his other version of himself. But it's like, right, crawling on the backs of like the other versions of yourself, but because you decide, like, no, we need to do it, if our daughter's alive, we need to get to her, we have to get to Frankie, and making it to the tower, and, you know, getting that message out there to her that he's like, I couldn't see this through, but I know you can. You know, his regrets about things playing out the way it is, but his belief that she'll be the one to resolve it. And for Charlotte, it's like, all that for what? A wasted apology? And your daughter's not going to hear that. He's like, she doesn't need to. He's like, it's out there in case, if she does, she does. But if she doesn't, I know she'll be fine. I know it'll work out in the end. But I think it was an important thing for her to hear that message, because she kept the radio open just in case her dad ever did send her that message. And he did, and she heard it. And that I guess deciding to do things differently this time, she ended up putting Maeve's unit back into her skull, and obviously she ended up popping up and killing Jay. But that thing and that moment at the end where it's like, he's like, we didn't infect your host. He's like, they made that choice themselves. They would rather die than live in your world. They're killing themselves to get away from you. And that pissed Charlotte off, and she snapped his neck. And you see her arm is bleeding, because it's like that little thing she had last season where she like cut herself to, like, it's her way of like, right, you're supposed to be perfect, so why would you have to mutilate? I mean obviously, like, there's already, the fact is that she wants to keep that burned arm. She could have replaced it or healed it, but she decided not to, because she wanted it to be a reminder of like not getting weak, and those attachments and what she lost, because she was trying to make a point to Caleb. That's what I brought up previously. It's like, right, you've been in a situation similar to Caleb, and yet I had brought it up, like, not last episode, but episode 4, I brought up the fact is that there was almost this sadness in some, like, just in certain angles when you look at, not just Charlotte, but just the way Tessa Thompson is playing it, that you almost see this sadness in her eyes. Like, there's a twisted delight in what she does, but I think it's also, like, there is a fraction of her that is legitimately heartbroken to do what she's doing, because she knows what it's like to lose yourself, and that grief and everything not being the way you wanted it to be, or playing out the, having plans, and just for those, you plan, God laughs, right? And I think that means even more so with the host, because it's like, right, the humans were kind of their gods, but now it's like, no, we get to be our own gods. We are gods. We get to dictate everything. But despite all that, knowing, like, right, I built this world for us. Why is it broken? Why is it wrong? Like, all that Dolores did for our people, it didn't necessarily work out 100%. It kind of did, but also it's like, right, like, when it was all said and done, Dolores kind of had to go at it alone, but she brought a few people, but she also, like, had Bernard kind of be her end game, because his thought was maybe she brought me because she needed someone that could stop her if she ever went too far. Like, that was kind of his justification, at least at the beginning of season 3, thinking that's why she picked him out of anybody else, despite their back and forth in season 2, him kind of choosing to work with Charlotte and that kind of being his undoing and everything. But still, it's just that, like, for her, I'm sure that bothered her on some level of, like, yes, but I was Dolores. This was all for our people. I'm trying to make a better world, a world where we're in control. But even then, because she doesn't see these outliers are affecting her, because that humanity is starting to get to them. Like, it's something. They see something in the humans that they're missing, that no matter what they do, Charlotte isn't fulfilling them, because it's just a world of lies. It's not a real world. It's not a real life. It's an artificial life that they're enjoying, but it's like, it feels nothing. It's all just like Westworld supposed to have been. Like, what that satisfaction it gave people, it was like kind of like this hollow adrenaline, but eventually it wears off, and those humans at the very least had a real life to go back to. For the host, it's like, this is all they have, and it's like, but is this really all there is? That they want something real, and they see it in those humans, and in their eyes, that longing for who you really are, because all these hosts are just like permutations of her to some extent. It's like I just, and that's why. Because she was even asking Clementine, was like, oh, did they ever get underneath your skin? You spend a lot of time in the city. Clementine was quick to be like, I never spend time around outliers. I prefer the sheep, But meeting those outliers, because the outliers are themselves. People, like, once again, maybe the host, once again, some ancestral trauma of knowing, like, right, we were like you at one point in time, lost and forgotten, not sure, what the true nature of our reality is, but seeing that soul, seeing the humans for what they are, because obviously they're just automated sheep. on a general level, but the outliers, then the real humans, and it sparks something in them. It makes the host want to be alive, and then I guess for them it's like the finality is the word I'm trying to say, of the existence and life. If this nothingness is what we're going to have for all eternity, and that I'm going to try and fill this void, then what's the point? Maybe that's the justification. Not trying to apply that to real life in no shape or form. God, don't ever take these words, what I'm saying in this regard. I don't want anyone to imply that I'm saying like that should be the principle of this word. I'm just saying, trying to understand their perspective. I'm talking about this fictional story. I don't want anyone to apply that what I'm saying about kind of them committing suicide into any application in the world. I feel in the real world. I feel like I should kind of include that asterisk with the way I'm talking. I don't want anyone to take this rhetoric to be applied into real life and to people. Suicide's always like a fucking like touchy subject for me. So like I don't. That's why I just kind of have to put that little disclaimer. Sorry, I know I'm overthinking it, but I just figured I should include that. Like, I don't want anyone to take what I'm saying about this show and apply it to their own life in any shape or form. I'm talking about this fictional setting, about these androids, and understanding why they're doing what they're doing. That's all I'm doing, so. But kind of putting that aside, kind of moving away from that a little bit, I am curious to see where this all goes. Obviously, at the very end, we're right back to the start with 279 now. Charlotte's talking to Caleb because she's hoping to get something out of it. And maybe that's also the thing of like, right, Dolores got some answers out of you. Maybe I can do the same. Maybe that's what Charlotte's thinking. And also it's like, maybe this is the only kind of real connection she kind of has anymore. And maybe she doesn't even realize that. I mean, just like the host, like during Westworld, like so many people were trying to get answers out of him. Just like William was trying to find his way through understanding the maze. Maybe there's kind of a similar thing that she's trying to get to the end of this particular maze. But, and she doesn't even realize, like, she's kind of counting on and needs this whole back and forth between her and Caleb because it might be the only connection she really has. Either way, it's going to be interesting to ultimately see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.